Hello Internet, I'm James. Welcome to the first episode of The Road to Sustainability, a series of videos I'm creating to be aired on YouTube, focusing on how we can individually and collectively become more sustainable. Like you, I'm an energy addict, but not this sort of energy. Energies I'll be discussing in these videos mostly relates to our consumable energies like gas and electricity, and I'll be investigating topics around energy saving and consumption, energy generation, embodied energy, wasted energy, basically anything to do with energy. The big thing is our demand is increasing and our resources are depleting, and it's costing us. I realise there's a lot of greenwash out there, so I'll be analysing the effectiveness of some of these so-called energy saving devices. I'll be dispelling some myths and talking about the financial impacts of sustainable choices. So a big thank you for watching. I hope you gain some valuable information from these videos so that you can make your own road to sustainability a great success. We're addicted to consumption, whether we like it or not. We're consuming energy in literally everything we do. We're consuming substantial amounts of fuels for transport. And we're consuming tons of food daily to survive. We're consuming land for infrastructure and housing developments. We're consuming products to enrich our lives. And the big one is our insatiable demand for electricity. But why does any of this even matter? Have you ever had your phone die on you right at that point you're about to beat the high score? How about when you're watching your favourite TV show and this happens?
What is your rating? C.
What the
How about when you run out of fuel, leaving you in the middle of nowhere? See, these are minor inconveniences that occur when we run out of energy. But there's a much more devastating effect that occurs if we really run out of energy. You see, we can't stop consuming, and the act itself is not so much the problem. It's how rapidly we're doing it. Our population and energy consumption are increasing substantially, while globally we are burning through resources, destroying our environment to keep the world moving, creating and delivering more and more and more. And the solution to our big energy problem? Well, it's using renewables and using the energy more efficiently. So I remember my mum cracking it at me one day when I was about maybe 14 or 15. I just got this monster computer for my birthday, and I was on it playing games as often as I could, really, hours and hours, and then I'd just jump into bed and crash. But what I would do is I'd leave my computer on. Little did I know that this was going to cost me big time. I don't know, a couple of months after I got the computer, she came home one day, cracked it at me. Our electricity bill was like $500 for a quarter, I think it was. It started this kind of question in my head, like, where is the energy coming from? Or where's the electricity? Where am I consuming it? Why is our electricity bill so high? What did I do? I started trying to figure out how I can understand electricity better. The best way for me to understand what I was doing with my electricity was I had the electricity bill, so I knew what the total amount of electricity was that we were consuming in the house, but I didn't know what items were consuming the most. So I made a conscious effort to find out where all this power was being consumed in my house. And that's really what this first episode is about. It's about just the basic understanding of where you're consuming your electricity. What I ended up getting was one of these devices. It's called PowerMate, and basically it's just an energy monitoring device. And what this does is you plug it in. So you plug it into your wall socket, and then on the other side you plug whatever device you're plugging in, or whatever you want to measure, be it a TV or a monitor, and you plug this thing in and it will tell you how much power you're consuming instantaneously. You can also program it to record the amount of energy over time that you're consuming, and it will show you the voltage, it will show you the current, and these are all just the basics of electricity, really, that you need to understand if you want to make, some sort of substantial change in your consumption. And so today, this is just the first lesson. I'm going to show you how this device works. you can find your own electricity bill, and you can put a spreadsheet together with all of the different things that you have in your house that consume electricity, how long you use them for, what their power rating is, and you can kind of try and match your electricity bill. And if you can match it closely, then you know you're on a winner. If you can't, then you know you're going to have to start looking for other sources of energy consumption. Okay, so I may not have mentioned that you can get the energy monitoring device or equivalent energy monitoring devices from places like Bunnings or Jaycar Electronics or probably some electrical wholesalers. But yeah, when I first started learning about electricity, one of the most important things I learnt was the equation P equals IV, power equals current times voltage. So P is power measured in watts, I is the current, electrical current measured in amps, and V is voltage measured in volts. All this equation says is that current multiplied by volts gives us the power consumption. And I know from first-hand experience that there's this really common misconception that low voltage means low power consumption, which is just totally incorrect. And I think it just comes about, you know, specifically when people are talking about standalone power systems and 12-volt halogen downlights. But here's how the equation works in very simple terms. The power that we receive from the electricity grid is 240 volts. If your device is drawing 5 amps, then you multiply 240 by 5, and that will give you 1200 watts. If you want to know that in kilowatts, you just divide that number by 1000, and that will give you 1.2 kilowatts of load. So if we know any two combination, power and voltage, then we can find out amps. If we know voltage and amps, then we can find out power, and so on. Now that we know the power rating of a device, we can also add time. So if you use the this 1200 watt device continuously for 5 hours, then you're going to be consuming 6,000 watt hours. It's not necessarily 6,000 watts per hour, but it's 6,000 watt hours. If you divide this by 1,000, then you get 6 kilowatt hours, and this is what your standard metric is for your electricity consumption. It's what you're going to see on the bill, and it's what you measure the power consumption of devices in. So the exercise I did today was I went through every single room in the house and I came up with this spreadsheet. I identified electrical appliances that I have in the house. Printers, lights, speakers, computers, TVs, whatever. Put them all in a spreadsheet, and along with the hours of use that I use them for. So I split it up into day, week, month, year, and just added however many hours a year or a month or whatever I use it for. Obviously a heater you might not use in summer. Now you have to be aware that power draw is not constant or consistent. You may have stuff turned off, like the printer. It's virtually never in operation, but it's plugged in and it's still on, and it's connected to Wi-Fi, so there's still some amount of power there, and I think it was something like 6 watts or whatever it was. But that's just running all the time, standby power consumption. And then obviously when the printer starts working, then the power will increase and consume a little bit more. And then you've got things like fridges, which go in cycles. They don't operate and start, like, they don't cool your food consistently throughout the day. They'll work for a little period. The thermostat will measure that it's colder, and then it will turn off. And then when it reaches a certain threshold, it will turn back on, then, you know, it'll keep doing this cycle. Same with washing machines, they obviously have different cycles. And so depending on your monitoring device, you can actually set it up so that it records amount of energy over time, which is really helpful for stuff like fridges and washing machines where it's, you know, X amount of time, rather than just plugging it in and seeing an instantaneous like 2,000 watts, even though it only really consumed like 300, it was just heating up the water or something. That was the very first thing that I needed to learn. And it helped me because now I've got this spreadsheet. I know everything in the house that is consuming power in the house. Obviously there's some things like the air conditioning that's hardwired, and the lights are hardwired, and the ceiling fans are hardwired. So I basically had to go onto the manufacturer websites, find out the product specifications, and still do the same sort of thing. You know, I know that my light globe is pulling 15 watts, and I know the ceiling fans are pulling something like 45 watts. So here it is. So I've got my devices, I've got my standby power, I've got the operational power, and I've got my hours of operation, and an average daily consumption. So now that I've got all this data, I can begin to use my power a little bit more carefully. Like when I was a kid, I'll be turning off my computer every night. It forms a basis for positive change, especially now that you've learned that bar fridge that you leave running is the reason for a quarter of your electricity bills.